Pinkertons Ghosts is a horror anthology podcast by Superversive Radio, with no affiliation with any detective agency, person, real or imagined, or the dark forces of Outre Terre. It is not intended for children.
Jack Morrow here. I left the Ozarks for St. Louis. I went down into the city's bowels and found the church under the highway. I expected the angels defying me, but there was nothing. The door was unlocked, and the entrance to the stairs was even cracked open a little. A warning in and of itself. An open door, an invitation. Come on down, Jack. I pushed through. Nothing. No one in the cellar. The door near the furnace was shut, but it opened up on greased hinges. Maybe it was the choice. That is, me going down there without a doubt in my mind that unlocked all the doors. I didn't have my gun out. Plenty of people knew I was going down. Plenty of people wanted me to go. The doors to the river Styx were staffed by some of the white-haired demonette bureaucrats. Back again, eh? You know you're not really ours to keep. Get out. One with a sour face was sitting at the desk. I put on my best smile, the one I bring out for clients who pay for Paranormal Pinkerton services. I'm here for a woman wrongly imprisoned. She, like me, doesn't belong down here. False pretenses. I'm looking to pull her out. My mother. The demon tapped on the computer in front of her. Damn, that is a cluster of a horoscope. Both of you, for that matter. I'm not into the dog and pony show. Horoscopes aren't real. What, you think the stars are lifeless? They serve like the rest. Wait, what did you say? Listen, punk. The dog and pony show is the only thing keeping your flesh from melting off your skin. It's less impressive than that. Pretenders. Light show he puts on to get the people all hot and bothered. Look, she's down below, a guest of Hades and Persephone. Even if I could pull out someone, which I can't, dumbass, I especially couldn't pull anyone out of the court of Hades. This isn't a hotel. It was worth a shot. You never knew what you got when you ask. Plan A it was. Thanks. Have a good one. The demonette gagged. Don't treat me like a human being. It's demeaning. We've got to move this place. Not a big surprise, but I had to be sure. I had to be sure. Underworlds of myth and legend be damned. I'm not going to storm the wrong gate. There's no poetry in that. I descended the stairs. Two angels flanked the head of the steps, both holding their heads in their hands and weeping, both hiding their eyes. I couldn't blame them. Going deeper into hell is easy. You just gotta go with the flow. 2 lines, no waiting. The dead stood there, around me, confused. They ignored me. They were turned in on themselves. They said nothing, but I think I saw them go over their own lives and deeds. A clenched fist there, a sob here. No words, mind, but the bare minimum of their human life. It went in and out of the eyes of those around me. By the time we reached the barge, it was gone from them. I was the only one staring out across the Styx. It was still as glass. Were it not for the rarest of lapping water barely above the silence, I would have thought it a plain of obsidian. There was not much to see at the water line. Even the barge was a plain standing space without lip or ornament. I held out a gold coin to Karen, but he refused it with an upright hand. The ferryman was dressed in a fine set of white linen pants and a belt of blue and gold. His body, however, was blacker than any skin color known. I could see him, like Rodin's The Thinker. He had a man's form, but he had no detail but his blocky, man-like musculature. I half think he wore his pants so people could see him. He motioned that I should stand near him. When he moved, I saw slits of gold where his eyes should be, and at his joints. Instead of a massive pole, he sat on a plain seat and maneuvered a rudder. The boat moved by itself. Karen guided the ship from the rocks of the shore to the doors studding the mountains beyond. Well met, living man, son of, daughter of Orion Morrow, son of Tom Morrow, an illustrious lineage of men who served and slayed the monsters sent by hell to afflict the world. Your bloodline's actions have lessened my all but infinite burden immensely. You ride free. What about the rest? I saw no money's changing hands. I'm not allowed to leave any less than full. Hell must have its traffic. You must understand that the wars in those days were worse than any in this modern time, and men had access to gold and were buried with the precious stuff. Even if a man wore many gold chains and owned many luxuries in the world above, now he is looted of them before his body is cold, and is never buried with them. Hell is cruel, but it is practical. I must take them. Did you take my mother? Of course. She did the same as you. I said the same then. She did ask me to refuse you passage, but that is not something I'm allowed to do. Hell has an open door policy. The plank of wood made fast time. I saw the rising cliffs peak over the water. The smoky cavern roof sloped towards it. There were no rock formations like a natural cave, only the feel. It was nearer and not further. The cave paintings above did no good. They were all sinners being punished. I couldn't recognize all the cultures at a glance. How many rose and burned before history was written down? Can you take me and my mother back, or do I have to find my own way? Any living man can leave hell if he wants, so long as he has the authority to do so. I don't mind taking passengers back one bit. I see. Let me warn you, Jack Morrow. Hell is hell for a reason. I was created for this place because the Almighty knew that there will always be those who reject him before the return that may or may not happen. I hope it does, because I am a tired thing. And so provided for them infinite love, but also infinite holiness. It wants to keep all within it. Demons, humans, whatever. Hell is a mouth. I made to ask him a question, but he cut me off. I'll advise you nothing. I'm not allowed to meddle or even speak plainly to the living. At this point, a dead man has lost his free will. He is fated without a complaint from his lips. You, being a living man, may use your free will to repent and turn back, to turn against your purpose. Your mother has the same ability. All living men may turn to God. After all, the court of Hades is formidable, but it is not without its weaknesses. It was broken once. We are here. There were no more shades on the boat with us. I did not even see or sense them leaving. No other beings were with us on Karen's boat. Thank you. I did nothing but what I was made to do. Where are the rest? Were there others on the stop? The Greeks are a dead civilization. There are none who only know their ancient rites and know truth. No one performs them. Some may pretend, but they know better, and so go to what they know to be true. No one has left this boat at the stop besides you and your mother since, well, in this century. Goodbye. The golden slits closed, and I took the hint. I stepped off the ferry and into a cut stone staircase that led up into the rocks. I had seen pictures of Greece's old mountains before, while researching some of Tom Morrow's old wartime cases. It had the same look. Rugged mountains like dead men's bones. They lacked the quasi-cleanness of the Rockies or the mists of the Appalachian Mountains. I reached a door and greeted the doorman, a single hoplite in Greek-style armor. The man was older than my own, 33 years, but no more than 45 if I were to guess. I was shocked to see him alert after the inwardly turned shades of the ferry. His eyes flashed, and he stared at me as if I meant him harm. "Let me pass." I walked near to him. The spear was tilted across the doorway. I dared not get close while the man acted so warlike. I could shoot him, but I doubted the dead cared for bullets. What's more, the man was not tall, but he was built for power, and his armor was thick. It could be that he had little to fear from me. "I cannot stop you. I cannot recommend you continue either. Look, it is Karen's custom to nap at this derelict port when he has divested himself of his dread cargo. Take you down, and nap as well. When you wake, you will surely find yourself among your countrymen, the living. Karen is kinder than the imitation found in the myths of my people." "Who are you and your people?" "I am Hector. Long millennia have I stood at this door. At first, it was a pleasure to see my enemies die and enter into their punishment. Then I saw Aeneas and the other Trojan survivors who fled the sack enter the same door. Then I saw their descendants. Then complete strangers. Then I saw no one. In life, I defended the gates. In my rage, I was near peerless, but for Achilles and the gods. But for Achilles. My nerve broke in that moment. Oh, cruel life, cruel death. I held faith in the faithless and capricious will of my family. Instead of a man, a shade. Instead of help and life, a shadow and death. I deserved it. I had an inch of life when I was dragged along the miles of the Trojan wall. I was not when Achilles finished his victory laps. Why not go in? Does someone hold you here? In life, I thought I had no choice but to defend my city, and I was right. But now, in this moment, I have no other choice than my duty. I was shamed in death for backing away and fleeing wrath-filled Achilles. In my after-death, should I also flee my duty? No. One more thing. Scamandrius, Astyanax, my son has not passed through. I do not know why. I do not know if he found some better truth and sought that, or if he is trapped in some manner and cannot come through the wide door that lets people in without limit. I could. Hector's mouth twisted as if a savage. His beard bristled. In a blink, he could have stabbed me. There is no hope here. It is all finished. Give me not even the lie of hope. My son either passes by, or he passed by some other land. There is no communication here except for when the demons talk amongst themselves as they fly above. Though I sometimes hear the strange screams of bats and great cats on the other side of the cliff, and the ritual gong on the other. Here, instead of you giving me hope, let me give you advice. Do not let the faithless govern you or your actions. Paris. I should have listened to Cassandra. How much I should have done. Put it from your mind. Paris took what he wanted and ran to me. My father took him in, and I defended him spear, sword, and shield. Put aside the pallid lives you have been fed, and drink deep wine, dark truth. You came here to take your mother back. You know that it was under no stranger circumstance than Helen's change of heart. Do not be like me. Give it up, like I should have done. Troy was not worth Helen. Troy was not worth the paltry trinkets Paris stole from Menelaus. Rather than let you be taken by the Lord of Death and his Lady of Dread, go and return to your lands. I sense you are unmarried. Go, take a bride. I heard the elves hunt a woman who play-acted a soldier in your land's armies. She has slain a handful of the nobles and disturbed the elves' tithe to Tartarus. Demons hate her for saving the innocent. Perhaps that is a match for a hunter like you. Kill her pursuers and take her. I'm sure she would bring you a son to shame Orion, who was given a constellation to honor his memory. Be a happier man than I. I do not advise you to flee. I advise you to choose again the course of your life like a man at the rudder of a ship. A man who walks under his own graceful power is better than a fleeing man who trips over a rock. Instead of prostrating to unmoving Hades, seek the god they curse and act in his ways. It is too late for me to do aught else, but wait here. Your mother may receive the same wisdom, and likewise choose again the course of her life, while she still has it to live. I did not have to die for Paris and Helen's sin, nor you for her. I spat. No, I will go down and take her up again to the living world. Hector stamped his spear. So be it. No door in hell is locked, but I will lay my weapons down if you fear me. Ah, what is this age, that the son is like the mother? Better than my father. Which? One last word. Beware, Cerberus. He sat on a pillar of basalt as I passed through the door. It shut behind me, and I put away my doubts. I was aware of Cerberus, and had planned for him. There had been enough hints that a hellhound did live in the bowels of Hades. The sources agreed that he was killable. You might imagine that I chose not to go in without an ace. I walked through a ravine until I came to a paved road. No more were things wild. Instead, an immense, ancient Greek-style city flowed out in front of me. The buildings were in the style, beautiful and symmetrical, but uncared for. Nothing was broken, but nothing was loved. There was every sign that no suffering ever took place here, and that there was something like peace and plenty. Yet the shades of men sighed. They ignored me. If I asked an active shade, he merely pointed down the road I was already traveling. I saw almost no women. They peeked out from windows. I saw no signs of violence. I saw no signs of life. Dust was on the fountains, the ledges, the seats. No one sat on anything but the ground itself. No one wept, but there was no passion. I was reminded of waiting rooms and government offices. The chairs were comfortable, but there was nothing to do but wait. So I walked on past the columns, the palisades, the millions, sitting and waiting, the women never leaving their houses. I saw no man in the house either. I knew I was being watched, but nothing challenged me. There was no torture other than the wait. The next sight was a field that stretched on and on, beyond the horizon. I walked past many who labored to maintain a lawn or a vineyard, or a section of clear water. I never saw them move or talk. There was nothing but a mindless unlife. I was reminded that the fields of asphodel are for those who were neither good nor evil. To the ancient Greeks, that meant that they did not live past their comfort, or take part of the fire in their souls. Their lives amounted to nothing. Therefore, in this land, they did nothing but repetitive tasks. I do not think they were aware of it. Like a person who grinds away at their job, awaiting death, they awaited the judgment. The road curved away from the horizon, and I entered into the fields of punishment. The suffering there was smaller than might be thought. I could not tell you how many there were in Elysium, but I could see that only thousands inhabited this torrid plain. I could see Sisyphus with his rock pushing it up a mountain. Shock of shocks. Camus was tied to it, while a fury, a woman with bat wings, laughed as she demanded of Camus whether he was happy or not. I did not wait to see what would happen if Sisyphus neared the top, but I am sure that the rock would be well cushioned by Camus' screaming body. I saw Antiochus Epiphanes bubbling in a pot of excrement. With him were several men dressed in religious robes. A sign above their heads said, "The first Gnostics, as they declared, so they suffer." Antiochus gnawed on his tongue and cursed God with the energy of the living. The rest wept. I stepped near them to see if they had anything to say, but one of the Furies stepped close to me before I left the road. Her mouth was full of sharp teeth, but the voice was pure. "They are set keystone to all hells, so that the suffering may know that God's justice is not far off. Do not come near, or your living body will be torn by the multidimensional location. Stay on the road." I kept to her advice. I stepped aside as the Gracchi brothers, Crassus, Catiline, Cato, Marius, and more, all in Republican togas or other such garb, fought each other over the palanquin of a great elephant. Those that fell were trampled, but they clasped at the decorations on the elephant's legs and climbed again to the top, and fought whoever was trying to lounge in the luxurious quarters carried by it. I saw that they were all losers in their civil wars or failures in their desires for power. They screamed about reform and tribunes and councils, all false promises in the end. They bought and sold each other as they climbed, and betrayed each other before they vaunted to the top. They, like the rest, ignored me, and when they passed on, so did I. I wondered why I did not see Pompey. I left the fields of punishment and walked up a staircase bounded on both sides by a thick colonnade. The columns, which were a diverse mix of Dorian and Ionian, thickened until I couldn't see further than 3 ranks deep. The stairs narrowed until I could reach and touch both ends with my outstretched fingers. The stairs ended with a pair of immense bronze doors. These were carved with a triptych from left to right. The first showed angels conquering the lands of hell. The middle showed one angel giving the land to another. The last showed Hades with his bident, and Persephone on his right, and Cerberus on his left. This is how they thought of themselves. Not the losers of a war, but conquerors. Not forced by circumstance, by rebellion, but vaunting their choices. Perhaps it was Satan assigning Hades his post. Perhaps it was some other scene I would not understand the subtlety of. But I saw the opening of the doors would split the angel from Hades. I remembered what Hector said. No one locks the door in hell. I pushed them open. Each leaf of the door turned on its hinge without a sound. When I walked into the foyer of Hades, the doors closed behind me as soundlessly as they opened. Now I was in a large room paved with marble blocks, mortared with something like obsidian. It was a sea of marble. There was no sign that anyone had walked on them. I continued on. At the far end, a door of gold, bearing the sign of the bident, carved in ruby, stood defiant to the white blocks and black mortar. There was no guard or butler who stood at the door. I assumed it was unlocked, but I didn't want to go in quite yet. I saw no guard, but as I walked deeper into the massive room, I smelled blood and wet fur. It got stronger and stronger, even when I stopped walking. The marble stones settled and clicked, not quite in the same spot as they were before. Cerberus moved fast, and he attacked in the blink of an eye. 2 massive maws burst from the ground underneath my feet, scattering the blocks like water droplets. The doors in hell are not locked, but that does not mean there are no guardians. My mother made it through somehow, and I had more than an inkling. The second biting head was on my left, so I dodged right. I was struck by a lump of bloody flesh. The force threw me to the ground. Cerberus was a big dog. Its shoulder stood around the crown of my head, and I stand 6'6". Each head had a width of 4 feet at least. Each tooth was like a bowie knife. 2 red tongues lapped the air. The nostrils flared, and the beast roared. His right head was a stump, bleeding and pus-filled. I could see the cuts of meat flowing from that right stump. Who knew how time flowed here, but it looked fresh. Cerberus bled without end. I guess my mother met it and did her bloody work. I had been reading her mission reports. I knew she was savage. But she taught me well. It charged. The beast favored its right side, thinking I would dodge again. I pulled the pin and paddle on the grenade. I prepared and threw it into the left mouth. I had cooked the grenade for 2 seconds. If it had kept up its attack, it might have had a chance. Instead, it tried to scare me. The left head detonated. My mother must have used heavier ordnance. The skull and eyes exploded with a burst of fire and blood. It staggered. The tattered fur caved in on the newly emptied cranium. I planned something more for it. It was staggering, confused. I didn't have time to know whether the heads were independent or codependent. I got near to it. The thing had a collar. Cerberus, carved onto a golden coin. I leaped onto its back and braced myself with a leather collar. It went insane. The lone head barked and whined. The back legs pranced and the front legs dipped. It was trying to buck me, but the motion wasn't quite right. I pointed it at the golden door and dug my heels in. The doors of hell are unlocked, after all. Cerberus broke through on the greased hinges, and I was in the throne room of Hades and Persephone, ready to exchange Cerberus' life for my mother's. Hades and Persephone were unmistakable. 2 immense statues given life and motion sat on black thrones, carved with all manner of angled writing. The bearded head of Hades wore a black crown. Persephone wore a black veil and a tiara. Both held scepters and signs of power in their hands, and wore more on their sculpted bodies. The bident of Hades sat near to his hand. All around the room were similar doors, each with a different sign or name. They were large, golden, and I knew that many went through them. Some were obvious, like the Aztec and Hindu doors. I shuddered to think of the one with Christian iconography. Above the doors were benches like an amphitheater. They were filled with millions of little imps, demons, tormentors of all kinds. They giggled at my entrance. Cerberus tipped and fell nose first before its master. I pulled out the 1887 shotgun and pointed it at the monster's head. The blood of the dog had gotten everywhere, but my grip and aim were sure. I'd blow its brain stem apart with the twitch of a finger. Hades, Persephone, I am here for my mother. In exchange for not slaying Cerberus, you will give her to me. There was silence, then laughter from the cheap seats. The statue of Hades did not crack or move, but it spoke. Jack Morrow, you do not understand what you have done. You have entered into the cathedral of the enemy, where the millions of dead are judged and sent to their punishment. The floor is black for you, But we are standing on the back of great chained angels who abandoned everything, but were forced into proper service, a foretaste of the judgment that awaits them. Persephone spoke now. You mistake labor and position for loyalty. Just because we love the taste of power and do not wish to be chained does not mean we serve the thing you call God. It is like you have bound yourself and delivered yourself to us as if we had bought you at a market. Your valor, your virtue in the hunt has undone you. Where a soldier would accept the sacrifice or enter with proper circumspection, the hunter pushed on heedlessly. Hades commanded, Cerberus, end the charade. The ceiling shook. The imps laughed louder. The Furies screeched. The Minotaurs, Centaurs, and more bellowed. Cerberus regrew its heads in half a second, popping out like soap bubbles. It gave a doggy laugh. It barked. You fell for it, you fell for it, you fell for it. Hades' arm cracked, and the fingers pointed back at the foyer. Return to your post. The dog tossed me off of it, and bowed to the two thrones. Persephone nodded, and the beast left through the door. The clang of its closing echoed over the pandemonium around my head. Hades' voice could be heard above it all. We are not allowed to touch your life. You do not see the legion of our toe-kissing kindred surrounding you and your mother. We may keep you here until Judgment Day. At the mention of that day, the millions of imps screamed in pain. Then, when I and my kind descend in pride and glory to that which burns to think of, you will be released to that pretender. Persephone raised a hand. Jack Morrow, your eyes are now unbound. Behold, your mother. Did you think you would leave like Orpheus? Foolish. He was ever ours, and returned to us at the appointed hour. No resurrection awaits him. To keep you forever. But no man, demon, or ruler of hell knows the day or the hour. The dead man will ride forth, tied to a horse as if living. But until then, you are ours. Willingly, you came down. Now, you must remain. My mother was sitting on a bench. Her long face was drawn in grief and pain. Perhaps she wept. Perhaps she accused with her eyes. But I could not meet them. Despair filled me. I lost my strength as I slumped down into the stone seat. We sat next to each other to wait out the long eternity, or, if the Lord wills, a short time. I cursed. Hell had no reason to lock their doors. Men walked in willingly.
Pinkerton's Ghosts is a podcast distributed by Superversive Radio, licensed under an attribution non-commercial, share-alike international license. This episode was written by Ben Wheeler and is performed by the same. Ben Wheeler edits, directs, produces, and herds cats. Kid Dickerson performs our audio editing. Visit us on Facebook, read articles on superversivesf.com, or listen to us on unauthorized Acast, iTunes, or Spotify. Contact us through Twitter at @pinkertonsghost. Email us at pinkertonsghosts@gmail.com, or send us noble messenger possums with messages strapped to their backs. Don't worry, they know how to find us. Thank you for listening, and good luck.